Welcome to the J Sizzle Basketball Podcast. And today I'm going to do another individual team episode. I'm going to focus on the Sacramento Kings today. A lot of stuff happened with them last night. I'm going to talk about their season so far and different things that have gone on for them this year. And many more things. Again, I say this in every video, but I just want to let you guys know if you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. Go ahead and give these videos likes. The views have looked good so far as of late. So everything's looking good with the podcast so far. A lot of big things coming for the podcast soon, so just make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you go check out the website. I have East and West All-Star predictions. They're up. I also have a bunch of new blogs that I post. New articles that I posted on the website. I posted one about Lou Dort. I posted one about Scotty Barnes, and I have one today coming out about the Sacramento Kings as well. And then tomorrow I'm going to do one talking about the Phoenix Suns this season and stuff. So make sure you go ahead and keep up with those articles too that are on the website. You'll just see them. Should be listed under articles on the website. So make sure you go ahead and check those out too. They're small articles. They're like a paragraph, maybe paragraph and a half long. But it gives you kind of like a really, summarized detail of the player, the team, or whatever it is I'm talking about, and what I think about it. So make sure you go check those out for sure. So let's get right into it with the Sacramento Kings. So the Sacramento Kings, after a loss last night, which I'm going to spend a lot of time on because there was a lot of talk about last night's loss, they fall to 13-21 on the season. Right, they lost 127 and 102 to Memphis, and I was able to catch a decent amount of this game. And throughout most of this game, they started. The first half was pretty good, and then once they got into the third quarter, it just kind of got away from them like crazy. Really, in the third quarter. Got outscored 40-27 in the third, and then in the fourth got outscored 38-25. So got outscored by 13 in both quarters. So, it just felt like a game where Sacramento had the first half not in wraps. Sorry, I should rephrase that. They had the first half, and it looked like it was going to be a really down-to-the-wire game between two, young teams. And then all of a sudden, you see Desmond Bane come out and hit a bunch of threes, right, coming into the third quarter. You see guys like John Morant getting into the rhythm. You see Jaren Jackson Jr., who's played great this season. You see him getting into a rhythm, right? And you see all these guys getting into rhythms, and it's not even that, I'm not taking credit away from a guy like Desmond Bane, for example, because he's an incredible player and most importantly, an incredible shooter. Desmond Bane could be a future all-star in this league. He really could. As crazy as that may sound to some of you, you got to watch this game. Keep up with him. Second-year guy averaging 17 and a half, and he could shoot the lights out of the ball and play defense. He's a good player. But he was coming through a lot of that stretch of the game that I was watching, especially in the third. He didn't do much in the first half. In the third quarter, it kind of felt like some of the shots he was taking were literally warm-up shots. I mean, they were wide open from Buddy Hield not rotating defensively to De'Aaron Fox or Halliburton not rotating defensively. It just felt like Desmond Bane had literally like three wide open triples and he knocked them all down. He's not going to miss those. Wide open. I mean, nobody within a foot of him. Right, and that's kind of just like what a lot of it felt like, too. It felt like they were running a lot of pick and roll with Jaren Jackson, and nobody was rotating over to Jaren Jackson Jr. It was just a disaster of a game, honestly, from Sacramento's standpoint, in my opinion, if you ask me. And it's crazy because, you look at a team that's lost 7 of the last 9 now. They lost 3 in a row, so they're reeling a little bit here. They just don't feel like a team that, and I'm going to get into this a little more, but I'll touch on it here. A team that has any sort of future in this league, in my opinion. And it's kind of crazy because you looked at this team, a couple of years ago, right? And when you looked at this team a couple of years ago, there were moments where you felt as if this team could honestly be a really good team many years down the line. Because a couple of years ago, they were only half a game out of the playoff spot with De'Aaron Fox, with Buddy Hield, with Marvin Bagley. And Marvin Bagley was coming, this was like 3 years ago, Marvin Bagley was coming off his first year as a rookie, which looked solid, and they just missed the playoffs, and everyone believed Marvin Bagley would further develop his game going into his second year, which he kind of stayed the same. Talk about him a little later on. A lot of issues going on there, but you expected Buddy Hield to improve. He kind of did. Him and De'Aaron Fox were almost all-stars that year, but then they signed Harrison Barnes to that big $25 million a year contract, and they never look back on that, right? Because that was such a bad contract to give Harrison Barnes. And Harrison Barnes is a solid player, but he's not worth that kind of money at the age they paid him at. They paid him at like 30, maybe 29. He wasn't even worth that money in his best years. So that was the first mistake they made. Hiring Luke Walton was the next mistake they made. right? And they took so long to fire him. And I know a lot of Sacramento fans, I was able to go on the Sacramento Kings Reddit a lot, this year. Sorry, and figure out that a lot of Sacramento fans really thought that once Luke Walton got fired, that their team would be much better. Listen, I am a fan of saying Luke Walton is a big issue, right? He was a big issue for this team, and I've said that many times, and I've said that on previous podcasts before. But I don't think just getting rid of Luke Walton was going to help this team like that much. A little bit, but not to the point where they could be a playoff team. It wasn't going to help them that much. I mean, this is a team with a roster of, I talked about the team a couple years ago, right? And now we're here today in present day, and it's like, it just seems like the team hasn't made any significant progress. You have De'Aaron Fox, who can be a considerable all-star if he can work on his three-point shot, which he hasn't really improved throughout his career. You have Buddy Hield, who some nights plays the defensive end of the floor, but most nights doesn't. And you have, still hasn't gotten an ability to put the ball on the floor really at a high level. He does it a little more than he used to, but not enough more. Like a couple years ago, we thought De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield were going to be all-stars. We thought Sacramento was going to be able to form something crazy over there and actually be able to compete, for a championship one day, possibly. As crazy as that sounds, we did. I mean, a lot of people thought that. With De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley, that trio, and they had Bogdanovich too, a lot of people thought that they were going to be able to legitimately be threats. And that was 3-4 years ago. By this time or by next year, and they don't seem anything like that. I mean, at 13-21, they seem like the same team every year. They are the definition of mediocrity. It's crazy to me because they've had a lot of good players play for their team the last couple of years. And whether it's their development system that doesn't help these guys develop, or whether it's the players' lack of motivation or the coaching, I don't know. It just seems like it's a little bit of a mix of everything, in my opinion. Some people may think it's different. I mean, I want any Sacramento fans, to comment in these comments on YouTube and tell me what you guys think it is, because it seems like you guys haven't really improved at all the last 3 or 4 years. You guys have just stayed stagnant, and nobody really expected that from this team. I think a lot of us expected them to improve, based on their roster and their potential. Let me talk about Buddy Hield a little bit, and then we'll get into Marvin Bagley. Buddy Hield has slightly, every single year he's been in the league, last night he had 2 points. 27 minutes, 24 minutes, he had 2 points. He shot the ball 3 times. That's a problem. He made 2 free throws. That were your only points. I mean, that's a problem because, and your plus minus was when you were on the floor, -17. That's a problem because Buddy Hield is a much better player than that. He's a much better scorer than that. And he should not be looking. It's just crazy to me. It's just crazy to me that Buddy Hield had 2 points last night and only took 3 shots. Why are you only taking 3 shots? I understand a lot of that he was being guarded by Desmond Bane, and I understand that. Desmond Bane's a tough defender. I get that. But I'm sorry, to only take 2 shots all night, or 3 shots, 2 threes. I mean, that's terrible. I mean, for a guy who scores 15 a game, right, where he's at right now, that's pretty bad to only take 3 shots in a game. That just shows a lack of aggression, it shows a lack of motivation, and it shows a lack of trust in yourself too, in a way as well. Maybe he doesn't trust his shot anymore. I don't know what's going on over there. Honestly, I really don't, because I'm a fan of Buddy Hield, and I want to see Buddy Hield succeed in this league. And Buddy Hield is still probably, if you were going to go by 2K ratings or whatever you want to go by, or right, he's still probably a solid 80 overall. Right, he's still a pretty decent player, but 2 years ago he was an 82, and it just seems like every year he's just digressing, and he's just kind of been like very stagnant. And I just haven't seen any true improvement from Buddy Hield, right? 38% from the field this season. That has to improve. And that's when I talked about earlier, a few minutes ago, I talked about his ability to put the ball on the floor, which is something he can't do. Got to be able to put the ball on the floor. You can't put the ball on the floor. How effective can he be in this league, right? Yes, he's not the type of guy like a Duncan Robinson, where literally, unless he's shooting the 3-ball well, he's really bad. Buddy Hield, when I say he needs to put the ball on the floor more, I mean he needs to get better. He's not bad at putting the ball on the floor. He's improved his mid-range. He still makes 1 or 2 mid-range shots a night. And he still makes 1 or 2 layups a night, but he has to be able to get to the rim more. He has to be able to shoot that mid-range jumper more. I know he has the touch. He's got a great free throw shot. He's got a great 3-point shot. He's good at the line, so he's definitely going to have a good mid-range shot. He just has to shoot it. Not shy away from shooting it. And a lot of mid-range, obviously, the mid-range game has died down a little bit in the NBA, but a lot of guys still shoot it. You look at Chris Middleton, you look at Jaylen Brown, you look at Donovan Mitchell, you look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Those guys I just named are some of the best mid-range shooters in basketball. Jokic, they have perfected that craft, and look at how good their games are. So, Buddy Hield could put a mid-range shot into his game. He could average 20 plus every year. Easy. No doubt. Because he can shoot a three ball well enough. When he gets to the line, he makes his free throws. So he just has to learn how to shoot that mid-range shot. And a lot of that mid-range shot is getting the handle, right? You have to learn how to shoot a step-back mid-range shot. You have to learn how to, put the ball on the floor and get yourself to that mid-range shot. You're not just gonna run around screens and be open for a mid-range shot. That's not usually how it works, right? 3-point shot, they can set you a lot of screens, you can get open. They don't really do that with mid-range shots. You have to create your own shot if you want to have a good mid-range, right? The guys I named, Jaylen Brown, he creates his own shot. Shai Gilgeous creates his own shot. Donovan Mitchell creates his own shot. Jokic, for a big man, can create his own shot for the mid-range area, right? Chris Middleton can create his own shot from the mid-range area. Malcolm Brogdon is another really good mid-range shooter. He can create his own shot. So for Buddy Hield, it's being able to create his own shot, putting the ball on the floor more than he is now, creating his own shot from mid-range, and he could be an easy 20-plus scorer in this league and a really solid player. So, that's what it is with, in my opinion, with Buddy Hield. I just want to see him, put the ball on the floor a little bit more, and then, you see where you you see where you go from there. So, when it comes to De'Aaron Fox, let's talk about De'Aaron Fox, and then I want to get into Marvin Bagley, who's honestly going to probably cover up the rest of the segment here. So, and then we'll get into Halliburton a little bit too. So, De'Aaron Fox averaging 21 points a game this year, 5 assists. The 5 assist is, from what I believe, low for De'Aaron Fox, which is crazy to me because he's such a good playmaker, and not a low. In his rookie year, he averaged 4.4, so it's his second lowest. But last year, 7.2, the year before, 6.8. So that assist, number has really dropped over 2 since last year. So, I don't know if part of that is his teammates' inability to hit shots, or if that's just De'Aaron Fox's lack of aggression. If you guys were able to catch the Sacramento Memphis game last night, that's good that you were able to catch it, and you'll probably have similar thoughts that I have. So comment on your thoughts of the game last night. But if you were able to catch the post-game interview of De'Aaron Fox, you could tell he's just really bummed out. He's not really into it. He looks like he just tired, out of energy. He's done everything he can for this team the last couple of years. I think De'Aaron Fox will get traded before the trade deadline. And I don't think it will be a trade that would be like, oh, we're Sacramento, we want to get rid of De'Aaron Fox because he's had a slower year than he normally has. It's not even a bad year that he's having. He's just having a slower year. It's a decent year by his standards. But I think it'll be more of, De'Aaron Fox saying, get me out of here, I want out, instead of Sacramento saying we want to move on from him. And I think they'll eventually be able to find some sort of mutual agreement by the trade deadline. But I think it's going to be more Fox saying, I want out, because I think Fox is just tired. I think Fox has to be tired of this after a while. I mean, how many years can you stand losing and losing and losing until you're just ready to move on? And it's been so many years. And it's been a lot of years of De'Aaron Fox playing at all-star levels. I know he never made an all-star game, but playing just at all-star levels in a very tough Western Conference where, the teams are great and the point guards are great. So that's part of the reason why De'Aaron Fox never made an all-star game. But he's pretty much an all-star player. Last year, averaging 25 and 7. Those are all-star numbers. You could say what you want, but 25 and 7 as a point guard, those are all-star numbers. Easy. There's no debating that. Those are all-star numbers, right? So you look at it from that standpoint. You look at a guy in De'Aaron Fox who I talked about a few minutes ago, and I said he's never really developed a three-point shot, shooting a career low this year, 25% from 3, right, and making one game. Compared to last year, he shot 32%, making 1.8 a game. When he shot 32% last year, a lot of people were like, okay, he can shoot the 3-ball kind of. He's not great, but he can improve a little bit and end up shooting it well. But then you look at this year and it's like, okay, well, now, you look at his game and it's like, okay, he's dropped all the way down to 25%, back down 7% down from last year. He's making just about almost 1 less 3 a game from last year. He made about almost 2 a game last year, or making only 1 a game this year. Only 1 3-pointer made a game. I mean, I feel like De'Aaron Fox, I know he's not a primary 3-point shooter, but I feel like he's got to be better than that. Only making 1 a game. So, I don't know. Everyone's going to have their opinions. I mean, he's shooting 4 a game, so maybe shoot more a game and see what happens, I guess. I don't know. Because last year he shot 5.5 a game, so maybe get back up to that 5.5 shooting range a game for De'Aaron Fox on 3 balls and see what happens. But I don't know. It's crazy to me because De'Aaron Fox still has great potential in this league, and he's a lot younger than you guys may think, right? He's only 24 years old. So came into the league very young. I think 19, 20 came into the league. So still very young. He still has a long career ahead of him. I think he'll eventually make a couple All-Star games in his career. And, maybe he can make an All-NBA team one day too, But one of the big things about Fox this year that I've noticed that he's really digressed with is on the defensive end. He doesn't seem as aggressive. He doesn't seem as good as he's normally like a lockdown defender. He doesn't seem that way as much this year, but Like I said, I don't want to make this all about De'Aaron Fox because honestly, De'Aaron Fox is having a struggling year compared to his normal terms, but overall, compared to most players in the league, he's still having an incredible year. So, yeah, Fox is downgraded a little bit this year, but at the end of the day, De'Aaron Fox I think he just doesn't want to be there anymore, and I think it's like a little bit of a lack of motivation for him literally trying his best for so many years, trying to get this team a contention, trying to get this team even in the playoffs, and too many guys helping him out of the front office helping him out. So I think he's gotten a little tired of that. So I hope De'Aaron Fox finds a better situation for himself, because he's a heck of a player. He's got all-star potential written all over his name. He's got all-NBA potential written all over his name, if you ask me. He could be all-NBA defensive player, if you ask me, too. So I really want to see De'Aaron Fox go somewhere else with his career and try to get his career back to a jump start. So that's that with De'Aaron Fox. Now we got to talk about the guy that honestly I've been waiting to talk about on this podcast, Marvin Bagley. So, I want you guys to go ahead and comment down below what you remember of Marvin Bagley when he was drafted by this team and what you thought he was going to be after his rookie season. So Marvin Bagley is one of these players that a lot of people have bust written all over his name. And I think at this point, I think I was willing to give him one more chance and say, okay, let's give him this year as well and see what he can do. But after this, I think that's pretty much it for Marvin Bagley. He's every year of his career, he's slowly either regressed or been the same player. This year, there's been a huge regression, or he's been the same player, and it's just that's not what you want to see out of a guy who went number 2 overall in the draft in 2018. Number 2 overall in the draft in 2018, ahead of Luka Doncic and Trae Young, right? And if you guys remember that draft clearly, like a lot of people talk about that still to this day, like what Sacramento missed out on. And the number 1 pick with Phoenix, I'll do a redraft of these drafts on a new podcast, coming up soon. I'll start to do that the more I think of it now. De'Aaron Fox is the perfect pick for Phoenix. Yes, he's not as good as Luka or Trae, but Phoenix needed a big man. They went out and got a big man who's a really, really good big man who averages 17 and 11 a game and played a huge role in the team's run to the finals last year. So DeAndre Ayton was an incredible pick by Phoenix. That was a great pick. But then you come at number 2, right? Sacramento makes this pick with, makes this pick with Marvin Bagley, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, like when they picked him at the time, they needed a forward. That was one spot they really lacked in. They needed somebody to help out De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield and Bogdanovich because they had him at the time. And it was like, okay, this is a really good pick. A lot of people looked at this pick and said, this is going to be a great pick. They're going to love this pick for years, and he's going to be an all-star year in and year out. I was one of the people that thought that. And it just seems like now in his 4th year, it seems like Marvin Bagley has really just kind of made his role like a bench player, really. Like he's just a role player at best, to be honest with you. And he's come out of the Sacramento Kings starting lineup completely for the first time in his career this year. He shows a lack of motivation. One of the perfect examples of that would be earlier in the year, Alvin Gentry, who replaced Luke Walton when he got fired, we'll talk about what he said after the game last night in a little bit. He told Marvin Bagley to check into the game. This was about a month and a half ago. I think they were playing in Sacramento one night. They were playing against, I want to say Dallas or somebody. And he told Marvin Bagley to check in the game. Marvin Bagley looked at him and shook his head. He said no. So Alvin Gentry said, okay, so you can sit out the rest of the game and we'll bring someone else in. And Marvin Bagley, meanwhile, was healthy. It's not like he was hurt and he told Alvin Gentry no because I don't feel healthy. I feel like I might get hurt. It wasn't that. It was just the fact that he didn't want to come into the game. So there's the lack of motivation, in my opinion, right? It shows a little bit of a lack of motivation that you don't want to come into the game when your team needs you and when your coach has to get into the game. You would think somebody who is, I'll look at his contract in a second, but do you think somebody who has not really proven himself in the league yet, and a lot of people have criticized over the years, would want to prove himself and would want to work his tail off to try to get back to people saying, oh, you deserve to be the number 2 pick at the end of the day. You deserve to be a high-profile player because you're great. You would think he would want to get back. You'd not get back to that, but you would think he would want to get to that level eventually, and he just seems like he doesn't have the motivation to get to that level. Look at this draft. Marvin Bagley goes 2nd. He went ahead of Luka, who's better than him. Jaren Jackson. I'm going to name all the guys that are better than Marvin Bagley. Luka, Jaren Jackson, Trae Young, Wendell Carter, Mo Bamba's iffy, Colin Sexton, Mikal Bridges is better, Shea Gilgeous is better, Miles Bridges is better, Michael Porter's better, Dante DiVincenzo's better, Lonnie Walker's better. Kevin Huerter's better. Josh Okogie. I would rather have Josh Okogie. Honestly, he plays the defensive end well. Grayson Allen's better. Anthony Simons is better. Let's see who else. Robert Williams is better. See if I can find any more. Jalen Brunson's better. Devontae Graham is better. Mitchell Robinson's better. Gary Trent Jr. is better. Bruce Brown is better. I'd rather have Bruce Brown. He's a very underrated player over there in Brooklyn. D'Anthony Melton's better. See, Shake Milton's better. But this is so crazy right now, these names I'm going over. So look at all the names. I probably just listed 15, 16 guys. Marvin Bagley should have been the 17th or 18th pick in that draft if we did a redraft. And he may even slip further back. I have to look at it again when I do the redraft podcast. But that is so crazy for a guy who's a 5-star athlete coming out of high school, the best player in the country, arguably, when he was at Duke in the country for the one season he was there, and a guy who had comparisons to Chris Bosh. He turned out to be a guy in his 4th year as a number 2 pick who can't even get minutes on a Sacramento team that is lacking at the power forward spot, and he still can't get minutes. It's crazy. Like, it really is crazy. I mean, after Marvin Bagley's rookie year, right, where he averaged 14.9 points per game, 7.6 rebounds, he shot 31% from 3, making half 3 a game, which, even after his rookie year, we all said, okay, Marvin Bagley needs to shoot the 3-ball more consistent. Fine. But he had a solid mid-range shot. He shot 50% from the field. Defensively, he was never great. We knew he wasn't ever going to be that great defensively. We knew that was going to be the weak part of his game. But okay, fine. But you averaged 14.9 and 7.6 rebounds your rookie year. And then after that, you went into your second year, averaged 14.2, 7.5 rebounds. Pretty much the same season. 14.1 the third season. 7.4 rebounds. It's the same season again. So the issue here is that there's no progression. He's staying the same. And then this year he's averaging 7.7 with 6.4 rebounds. It's just the regression, right? That's what I talked about. Not even the regression. Sorry, stagnant. You're just staying the same. There's no improvement. You're just the same player. And honestly, when I said regression and I replace it with stagnant, I kind of mean regression and stagnant at the same time because his 3-point shot got worse over the years. He stopped taking mid-range shots after his first year for some reason. He seemed much more aggressive as a rookie compared to what he's been the last 3 years. So I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of regression and a lot of stagnation with Marvin Bagley in his game and how he's, played over the last couple of years. So I know Sacramento's looking to trade him. And Sacramento has looked to trade him for the last year or two now, but they haven't been able to find any reliable partners with something they want back that they like. But at this point, again, I always say it like this. His value is now completely shot out of the water, right? He has zero trade value in this league right now. Only trade value he might have attached to his name is that he's still young. He's still 22 years old, and some teams may think he has some potential. Maybe he just didn't like Sacramento all along and you want to get out. But when your coach tells you to come in the game and you sit there and you shake your head when you're healthy and you don't want to come in the game because you don't want to play, that's an issue, right? That's an issue for many different reasons, but one of the biggest reasons that's an issue is because it shows a lack of motivation, and teams do not like that. You think if he goes to Dallas or Philly or Boston or the Knicks, you think he's going to have more motivation? No. Why would he have more motivation? Yeah, those are much better teams. Those are all good teams. But why would he have more motivation? If he has no motivation, he doesn't want to play. Why would he have motivation all of a sudden? So, I don't know. I don't see it. I just think Marvin Bagley is, I think we can put bust on his name at this point. Last year I didn't want to do it because I said to give him one more chance. I was very patient with him, to be honest with you, in terms of talking about his game. I was patient, saying a lot of people said he was a bust. A year or two ago I said, no, give him some time. He's going to be okay. He can create his own shot. He still hasn't improved on some areas, but he can create his own shot, and I think he will improve some areas. And he never did. And that was a bad prediction by me. I'm going to admit it right here. That was a bad prediction. Marvin Bagley never panned out in the NBA, and I don't think, to be honest with you, he'll ever pan out in the NBA. I think for the majority of his career, he'll be a guy who will get I think he'll be a guy who will come off the bench as a 7th or 8th man off the bench for the majority of his career. And, I think that's what he's going to be for the majority of his career. I hate to say it, but I think at this point, that's the best, luck for him, and that's probably what he's going to be. I mean, if you look at his contract, pulling it up now here. So he has, so they held his $28 million that he got in his career. So he's earned $28 million so far in his career. Next year, this year he had a club option and they exercised it, so they kept him. Next year, he has a qualifying offer. So Sacramento can do anything they want with him next season. My guess is they'll let him walk, because the year after he does become a restricted free agent, but they can let him, based on these rules that I'm reading here, they can let him walk next year if they want and not give him that $14 million a year, because the rookie contract was originally a 4-year contract, but the 5-year was the qualifying offer. If he was able to play well, they were going to give him that $14 million. I don't think they'll give him that $14 million. I think they'll let him walk. I don't think Marvin Bagley makes anything more than $10 million a year, honestly. I think he makes just about 10 for probably a 4-year contract. He'll probably go somewhere like the Lakers or something like that, like a team that feels like maybe they can bring him off the bench, a team like the Clippers. Bring him off the bench, give him 15, 16 minutes a game, and hopefully he can impact the game a little bit. But his career in Sacramento as a Sacramento King, he's done, I think. Sacramento's looking to move on, I think. I think they're going to have a hard time trading him at the deadline, so I think they're just going to let him hold out the season, not give him that $14 million, let him walk and see what he can get elsewhere. Because at this point, I think that's the best that Sacramento can do with him, because they've tried to trade him multiple times. They tried to trade him last offseason. They tried to trade him this year. They can't do it. So there were some interested partners, but after that whole thing with Alvin Gentry where he didn't want to come into the game when he was healthy, a lot of teams backed out. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, when teams back out, that doesn't mean that they don't want him completely. That just means they may not want to give up their guys for him. They may be like, okay, when you're a free agent, we'll go get you and we'll sign you to a small contract, but we're not going to give up our guys for him. Look at the Clippers. You're going to give up Terrence Mann. You're going to give up, I wouldn't even give up Markieff Morris for Marvin Bagley at this point. You look at the Knicks, right? Another team that could maybe use him off the bench. You're going to give up Emmanuel quickly. You're going to give up Obi Toppin? I would not. I wouldn't even give up a first rounder for Marvin Bagley. Maybe a second rounder and Kevin Knox. That's about it at this point. So, it's just crazy to me that Marvin Bagley really hasn't panned out in this league. I really thought he was going to be a lot better than where he was. I thought by his 4th year, by right now, he'd be an all-star. At least once. Maybe twice. But he hasn't been an all-star at all. He's been nowhere near that. He hasn't made any improvements in his game, and every year he's honestly gotten worse. So, yeah, a lot of moves for Sacramento to make here, with Marvin Bagley. So one more guy I want to talk about really quick, and then I'll get into a little bit of a recap of Sacramento before I wrap it up. I want to talk about Tyrese Haliburton. And Tyrese Haliburton is a really interesting player. And I think he's the one guy on this team, if you ask me, that has the most potential. And I think most people would agree with that. Tyrese Haliburton is a very interesting player. Last year, he had a very solid rookie year. He started the year very slow this year, but the last 7-8 games, he's really gotten back into his groove. Averaging 13.2, but 6.4 assists. Now, defensively, he still needs a little work, but he's not a bad defender. He has potential. He seems like the only guy, though, on this team, the one thing that stood out to me, that has a lot of motivation and wants to be on this team for the long run. He seems like he wants to be on this team. So, let's see what happens. Maybe he wants to stay here for the long haul. But Sacramento, I know they've come out and said it multiple times that Tyrese Haliburton is untouchable and they will not trade him for anything. They're willing to trade De'Aaron Fox. They're willing to trade Buddy Hield. They're willing to trade Marvin Bagley, Tristan Thompson, Harrison Barnes. Those are the 5 guys they want to trade. But they do not want to trade Tyrese Haliburton. They want to keep on Tyrese Haliburton and Davion Mitchell. Those are the 2 guys they want to hold on to. Davion Mitchell, I know he struggled shooting the basketball, but I think his shot is slowly coming to form. Every game, it's getting better and better. He's going to be a defensive nightmare for opposing teams. Every night, he's going to lock up the number 1 guy in the opposing team, and he's going to do that for the rest of his career. I really like Davion Mitchell's game. Even if he doesn't develop into a crazy offensive player, I think in his best years in his career, he can average 13, 14 and be a locked-on defender, kind of like a Mikal Bridges type of guy, but a guard. And maybe he can, he has to learn how to shoot a 3-ball better to become a Mikal Bridges type of guy, but I think he can get there. So, listen, I like Davion Mitchell's game a lot. I think him and, Tyrese Haliburton in the future can actually form a pretty solid backcourt on both ends of the floor. I think, like I said, Davion Mitchell has to improve a little bit offensively, but he's a great defender. You pair him with Tyrese Haliburton, it can take pressure off Tyrese Haliburton on both ends. I like Davion Mitchell's game a lot, and I think it's time for Sacramento to blow this whole thing up. I really do. Blow this whole thing up, build around Tyrese Haliburton, build around Davion Mitchell, keep Rashawn Holmes, he's pretty solid, keep those 3 guys, and see what you can do. Even maybe a trade Rashawn Holmes. Either way, I know he's like 27, 28, so you could trade him. But keep Tyrese Haliburton, keep Davion Mitchell. Those are the 2 guys you need to keep on this team. Those are the 2 guys that have the highest potential on this team for sure. Because De'Aaron Fox, we're looking at him, and like I said earlier, he looks like he wants out. So what else is he going to really provide for you? Buddy Hield has been very stagnant the last couple of years. Marvin Bagley's gone down. Tristan Thompson can't really do anything anymore. Harrison Barnes is a decent player, not great. Sacramento just needs to. The last couple of years, they've held on to this team so long because they've been so afraid to blow it up because they think they have something special. And I think at one point, 3 or 4 years ago, like I said, when they missed the playoffs by half a game, they did, but then they screwed it up by signing Harrison Barnes for $25 million a year for getting Luke Walton as your head coach. Those are the 2 moves that messed it up for him. And then you traded Bogdanovich. That was a bad trade. I understand you had too many guards, but you could have figured something different out. There were just so many things that Sacramento's done wrong the last couple of years that have really hurt this franchise. And I just think it's time, instead of holding on to they've been holding on to this team for so long. I think it's just time to blow it up and move on. I think that's the only thing at this point, because you're going to be a 10-11 seed every year. Not even 10-11. You're going to be an 11-12 seed every year and not even make the play-in. not even make the play-in, chance to get to play in for the playoffs. Not even going to make the play-in. You're going to be an 11, 12, 13 seed every year, maybe even 14. Not 14. They'll be probably 11 or 12 realistically every year if they keep this team. And you're not really going to see any improvement because a lot of guys don't want to be there, and a lot of guys, the young guys, haven't made improvement. So, unless you want to keep being an 11 and 12 seed every year, it's time for Sacramento to blow this thing up. It's time for them to trade De'Aaron Fox. I like De'Aaron Fox a lot, but he wants out. You can tell. Give him what he wants. He's done a lot for your organization the last couple of years. He's been the heart and soul of your team for the last couple of years. He's worked his tail off to try to get this team in contention, and the front office has not supported him well. So De'Aaron Fox should request a trade him, trade Buddy Hield, trade Marvin Bagley. Marvin Bagley may be the tough guy to trade. So Marvin Bagley, you may have to keep him through the end of the season, but you trade Fox, in my opinion. You trade Buddy Hield. You trade Tristan Thompson if you can, and you also try to trade Harrison Barnes. That might be a tough contract to move as well, but you try to trade him if you can. Even if you get just draft picks back for Harrison Barnes, you still move him. I think that's the best bet at this point. So, look, I mean, it's just time for Sacramento to move on. It's time for them to admit that what they have right here is not going to work and they need to move on. Sometimes you just have to swallow your pride and move on, right? I mean, it's tough to do sometimes, but you just have to be able to do it. And I think if Sacramento can move on and they can, like I said earlier, they can build around Halliburton and Davion Mitchell, get some good draft picks, draft well. They need to draft well. They haven't drafted terrible the last couple of years. I mean, obviously the Marvin Bagley pick was a bust, especially based on who you could have had. But the De'Aaron Fox pick many years ago was good. Who else? The Tyrese Halliburton pick last year was good. The Davion Mitchell pick this year was solid. So they've honestly haven't picked terrible in drafts, especially many years ago when they picked terrible. They've been better the last couple of years. But now it's just time to blow this whole thing up, build around Tyrese Halliburton, build around Davion Mitchell, and move on from there and see where he can go. So, that's going to wrap it up for today's podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast today. I want you guys to comment in the YouTube comments. Comment what you think about Sacramento this year. What you think Sacramento should do. Should De'Aaron Fox be traded? Should Buddy Hield be traded? Should all the guys that I mentioned be traded? And should they build around Tyrese Halliburton and Davion Mitchell? I believe they should. I want to know what you guys think. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. And have a good one.